Thanks for staying with us. So yesterday, Sunday, many pastors were discussing on the pulpit on how to promote unity in this season. It's post-elections, and we're now working up towards the inauguration of the new government, and lots of people are worried about the safety and the narratives, the divisive narrative that's out there. Many men of God have been speaking against it. So joining us on the show right now to add his voice to this is the founder and senior pastor of Trinity House, Pastor Ituah Ighodalo, in the building. Welcome to the show.
Thank
Good
you.
to have you. I know this is Easter. Many people are talking about healing and all that, but we're really worried about how divided Nigeria is today, and it's quite pathetic when you listen to different circles, the kind of conversations that is ongoing. You know, people the hate, the division, and you're thinking that how do we begin to heal as a nation? And what roles do you think even the president-elect or the various parties can do for that cohesion to come up as we head towards for the inauguration? What are your general thoughts on this?
Well, I think this all speaks to the root and the foundation of the thing or the organization or the assemblage of people called Nigeria. Nigeria is something that was created not by the Nigerians, but by a foreign influence that decided that they wanted to create something for their own benefit. A lot of people don't quite understand that. No single Nigerian really came together and spoke to the others and said, let us come together and form a Nigeria. Again, no group of Nigeria ran all over the others, conquered the others, and brought them together. So there's been ab initio no foundation, ab initio no unity, ab initio no nation that is truly Nigeria by whatever creation. It was created by the British, and the British created Nigeria for the benefit of the British, to get our resources, to make Nigeria difficult to govern by Nigerians, so that they can continue to exploit our resources. The coming in government must first of all sit down and have a national discourse championed in a certain direction. If they don't do that, they will keep begging the question, because the issue of tribe and ethnicity, if not thoroughly discussed, will continue to raise its head, because a lot of people are ignorant, they are half-informed, they're not knowledgeable, they're not exposed. They don't even understand what they're doing in Nigeria.
Some will argue that Jonathan did that already. You know, we had a national conference, especially to address some of these issues that you've just highlighted. So would you rather this new government implement what the national conference came up with, or have a whole new conversation based on these new divisive narrative we're out there?
I think we should have a whole new conversation, because Jonathan, it was just politics.
Yes.
Did a national conference? Where's the result?
agree with it.
What happened? Who are the people who went to the national conference? How were they chosen? And so on and so forth. We keep begging the question in Nigeria. We keep playing politics. We are not serious. We're not sincere. We're not ready to face the real issues. And until we do that, nothing's going to happen. A lot of people are afraid that if you dig up all these things, it might cause a much more division. So they keep burying them and burying them. But it's like a closed sore. The sore is under. It will continue to fester until you open it up and clean it out. Period.
I had a conversation with Auntie Annie, and she would say that over years, yes, we're not one people. We didn't agree to become Nigeria. It just happened. But over time, we as a people, we've left the divides. We've outgrown them. We've become one. If you look, we've intermarried. We've always existed together. But the division only comes up when it concerns who is in power. So she would say that the political elites usually play the divisions and the differences when it pays them. And so we see them sort of sponsored and, further dividing us. But once election pass, give it a few days, everybody goes back to business as usual. Families will settle, things will go back to normal. Do you agree that, that's how it plays? Or this division, as we see it, truly is still, embedded in our
If it wasn't there, it won't work. If it wasn't there, it's like two children, you know. They are playing, they quarrel, then they seem to be playing, but the foundation of that quarrel has not been resolved. If it wasn't there, it will not continue to work. If it wasn't there, for example, the last election, some people would have told some people, keep quiet. We all belong here. I can run for office here. The fact that my name is not this and that doesn't mean that I don't belong here. Somebody would have spoken up and challenged it, and everybody would have kept quiet. But nobody could. Everybody was slipping back to their tents and saying, indeed, I am so-and-so. Indeed, I am so-and-so. Because it is still fundamentally there. And it is there because it has not been addressed. In 1966, the army came and destroyed the delicate union called Nigeria. That matter has not been resolved. We had a delicate arrangement. Western Nigeria, Northern Nigeria, Southeast Nigeria, or whatever it was, delicately. The Middle Belt still wasn't satisfied. Are we North? Are we Middle Belt? Are we this? Midwest Nigeria still was agitating. But there was a delicate arrangement, and we're trying to make it work.
Rossi came and just made
Then
it.
the Rossi came and scattered the thing. Gawan continued the scatter, divided us into 12 states by the barrel of the gun.
Yeah.
You couldn't talk. Then you posted the man from Nasarawa, became minister administrator in Enugu.
Yes.
The man from Enugu went to Nasarawa. Everybody kept quiet.
Unity. That was not.
Everybody kept quiet. Try to do it with so-called, what's this thing they do? Youth Corps.
Yes.
The Youth Corps didn't quite work, you know, because no leader, no national leader, no nationalist rose up and said, you know what? We have found ourselves here. We must make this thing work. Mr. Nasara come. Mr. Zamfara come. Mr. Ajimobi come. Mr. Yoruba come. Mr. Igbo come. Sit down. What are your issues? Let's discuss them. Let's resolve them. Let's agree or let's disagree.
Okay.
No conversation like that has really been heard. And until we have that conversation again or go back to 1960, which might be difficult because there have been different people given different powers, we are not going to really be able to move forward in Nigeria.
That's interesting. You know, there's something I hear about when you say stories, you say from your perspective, right? I would have said that the NYSC has worked and is working very well. I'll give you the reason why. I was part of an experiment. This cross-section of us Nigerians were asked to come to a round table from different parts of Nigeria, different ethnicities, different religions. And we're talking about, you know, the relationships. And we had this, I will use it, an Igbo man who insisted he would have nothing to do with the Hausa man and vice versa. But it just so happens that these two people actually knew each other before the thing. The people that called us did not know. He said, but this Hausa man is my friend. I will give him. This was to say, but this Igbo man, I know him. I will, you know, whatever I feel about them generally does not affect my relationship with this person because I know him. And so for me, my question is, what do we need to do? Because I feel that the NYC is a way of getting to doing that, of knowing. What would a discourse, what form would it take to bring Nigerians to know each other so that they can trust each other and then stop looking at us in that, looking at each other with that general view or political view?
The first is to let everybody go back to wherever they think they came from and let them agree where they came from among themselves, whether they want to be by themselves or they want to belong to Nigeria.
So that's agreeing to do a referendum?
There must be a serious referendum. Then when they have finished that discourse among themselves, let them bring from among themselves, whoever they think their representatives are, to come and have a national discourse. When we have that national discourse, moderated by whoever, then let everybody say what they want. I personally believe that having found ourselves together, we're probably better together. But people must understand that.
Yes.
And they must be taken through the process to understand that.
Yeah.
If you don't take them through that process, they will never accept it.
Yeah.
Youth Corps partially worked. If it worked well, you would leave California and go to New York and run for office. Nobody will tell you that originally you were from California. No. Mrs. What's her name? Clinton did it. She left wherever she was, went to Washington, left Washington, went to New York, sat there and ran for office from New York. Can that really happen in Nigeria? Almost impossible. Yeah. She could have run for governor of New York, and nobody would have told her that she came from Arkansas, because she fulfilled the requirements for settling in New York and running for office from New York.
Okay, so I know that we're very far from what the kind of democracy we see in America, and you know, like you said, from the foundation, what we see as the United States of America was people that came together to agree that we want to be together. So, but we found ourselves in a situation where we're one of the strongest democracy in Africa, and they keep saying if Nigeria gets it, it sends a message. And I am worried that the narrative that is moving, and even your conversation sort of buttresses, is that we need to go back to the foundation. For us to rebuild, we need to scatter. And I'm worried that what will happen when we truly scatter so that we can rebuild? In that process of scattering, we might just find ourselves completely scattered. And we might have more crisis on our hand than we think we have now. Because when you go to a Ijebu person, the Shagamu person will say he is not Ijebu, he is Shagam. Shagamu is different from Ijebu. And so no matter how much we drill down to a smaller subset of our society, we will still find someone that will feel like, well, I am Ijebu Ijesha. I am not your regular Ilesha. You know, that people will still divide themselves over and over and over again. So if we go there, we might never, there might be like, there's no point of return. And I remember just a few days ago reading the outgoing UK High Commissioner saying that Nigerian democracy is strong. We're happy to see that we're having succession, and we have the new president-elect, and then we're now thinking of going back to start discussing rebuilding Nigeria. How do you think we can make what we have work in this, like, how can we make what we have work? Yeah, let me put it in that way. Because I'm really confused about how to go about it, and I want Nigeria to work.
Yes.
Two reasons. If you have a really nationalistic leader who makes it his priority and goes around every nook and cranny of Nigeria selling this vision and telling everybody what it will benefit them to be part of Nigeria and negotiating with them, it can work. They must love him, they must trust him, they must believe him, and he must be able to fulfill his promises. So he will go to Yankari, sit with the Yankarians, discuss with them, hear their problems, sell them a big vision, give them their space in the vision, and commit to it. Go to Enugu, the same. Go to Abolema, do the same. If he can do that as a priority and they trust him, it might work. Short of that, my dear, we were always different people. We didn't crack up. We were different people. The Benis were in Benin. They came to Lagos. They set up a Eko. They moved to Dahomey, set up something. They intermarried, intertraded, interfought.
Still discussing with Pastor Ituah. Pastor Ituah, I have to come. You've taken us to the foundation, what you perceive as the foundation of this problem. In the past elections, as I said before, many families were torn apart. Friends went their separate ways just because some were for this party, the other party, people were divided. How do we build back the pieces? How do we reconnect back, especially for loved ones, husbands and wives? They couldn't divorce, obviously, but they were throwing daggers at each other in the house on this matter. Friends from high school, you know, loved ones, you know, divided over this political matter. And now they're still divided. Yes, you wanted to add
one more example. Someone tweeted that, you know, these school groups that would have, usually have been 20 years and more, and some of them have scattered based on this particular election.
How do we pick up the pieces and bring back love to ourselves?
Well, again, it has to be conversation. That is the truth. And a lot of people became so emotional, largely because fundamentally that is who they were, you know, in spite of what the veneer was. And secondly, because a lot of people are a bit immature and a little bit uninformed. And this is part of what the political class keeps preying on, the lack of knowledge of the people. That's why the Bible says, my people are destroyed when they lack knowledge. And one of the things we must do in Nigeria today is to really educate the people and inform them and let them understand the basic issues of life and the things that we're going through and so on and so forth. So we must begin to have healing conversations, restoration conversations, and this behoves on whoever comes in as the new government into Nigeria to begin to say, let bygones be bygones. Let us stop all these conversations. Let us build a more united Nigeria. Let us build a Nigeria where everybody can do anything they want. And we may need to change some of our laws. You know, fundamentally, some of our laws, in that anybody who has lived long enough anywhere for 5 years, 10 years, can run for office in that place. And nobody has any rights to call the person this thing. I don't need to go back to Edo State now. To start running from office and so on and so forth. Yeah. I lived all my life in Ibadan and Lagos. I was born in Ibadan. I went to school in Lagos. Since 1982, I've been living in Lagos. Ewohimi, where I come from, I can count the number of times I've been there. Okay? We do have a house there for my father. Even my father left Ewohimi at age 14 or 13 and moved to Benin and moved to Lagos and moved to England and came back to Ibadan. Okay? But now, it's time for election. Me, I'm half Yoruba, I'm half Edo. They say I should go back to Edo States, where I don't even speak the language very well. You understand? I speak Yoruba better than Edo. My mother is from Ife, Okegbo. The other day, Oni of Ife came to my colloquium, and he started explaining to the people that I'm his uncle, and that I'm more Ife than Edo. You understand? Meanwhile, if I go to Osun State now and say I want to run for office, they will remind me that my name is Ighodalo. So my name is Ituah Ighodalo. They say my name is Ighodalo.
I'm afraid of a negotiation and how it will play out because now we are very monetized as the people. So there's something called monetized. A national cake. So it's the turn of one tribe as against the turn of the other.
Sharing formula.
Whenever the discussion starts, it'll be like, it's our son time. That's why they want to discuss it now. So if any president were to put things on the table and say we should negotiate, would Nigerians negotiate along values?
What values?
Or would we still be on that monetary?
Or selfish,
okay, the resources are here. The Niger Deltas are very passionate about their cause anyway. All these years been clamoring and shouting that we are not as developed as the resources we bring. And, they are using our money to develop Abuja. Why is any state in Niger Delta, why can't we boast of a national or international standard hospital and all of those issues? Would we sit at that table objectively, or would we be thinking along money lines?
It doesn't matter what interest we bring. Let us bring our interest. You can't expect objectivity from everybody, but at least the man can express his interest. The reason why husband and wife quarrel is because they're both not objective. One is protecting one's interest. But let us hear what your interest is. Hopefully you'd find a leader who can be objective, and then he can then say, you know what, yes, the oil comes from Niger Delta, no doubt, but the man in Kano is your cousin, your friend, your brother. The other day, I needed to do something. My brother also gave me money to add to what I had, to do what I wanted to do. That's what we want to do. It's his money, but I need it. So he says, okay, take a piece of it. So this is your money from Niger Delta, but your brother in Kano needs to buy a hospital, fix a chair. Give him 10%, 20% of your money. This was the basis on which we did regionalization. Own your assets, contribute 20-something% to the federal. The federal will distribute that thing. If your brother in Zamfara or your brother in Abuja needs a bit more, let him go to you.
But Pastor Ituah, sure, we don't need healing. Recently, Governor Wike was in court on the federal land revenue sharing and what was accruing. Lagos State joined him, other states joined him. Sure, we don't need a period where we first of all get our dues before we say, okay, we are submitting.
That's the interest. Selfish interest. So,
you are in a nation, and if you then agree to be in that nation, there are conditions for being in that nation. Because there's a benefit in being in that nation. The benefits we get is that somebody will do a road from Kano to Port Harcourt so that you can apply that road and do your business. You have to contribute to that road. The benefit you get is that there's no point you having all the money in Port Harcourt and somebody in Benin has nothing because you can't do business with that person in Benin. Somebody has to change the narrative and the thinking about it.
Paint a new picture, right?
You understand? That's how the UAE came to be born.
Taking goes to UAE, because I was going to reference that. You see, we have, I think there are 7 that came together. 7.
Yes.
In this country, I mean, that's what the talk was trying to say. You keep going further and divided. Everybody now wants to say, I'm no more a minority. Everybody wants to be heard. There's so many diverse groups. So nobody who's going to dissolve their own identity to enter somebody's region and say, okay, I am Yoruba or I am Igbo. Everybody wants to say, no, I'm a Shakiri and I own my own nation. I am Yoruba, I own my own nation. Everybody wants to have their own nation. So how low or how much of division, how further can we go?
As deep as we need to go.
The Delta
We go as deep as we need to go into the one human being who says, I am one Nigerian in Ituah's house, Zen and Keke, their late mother. Let everybody express their interest. So Ituah's house will now express the interest within the community, Lekki or VI, where we live. Then we now express, you build it up like that, because that is how it is. Okay, even in the UK and everywhere, it goes down to that granulation. So we should not be afraid to granulate. You know, we need the United States of Nigeria building up from the ground, each person expressing their own interest and assimilated. Then the Ekitis will express, Adu Ekiti, Isenyi Ekiti, Iye Ekiti. They will all speak. Then they will say Ekiti interest.
Yeah.
Abi? Ekiti now will join forces with Ondo and all that, and Oyo, Yoruba interest. Then Yoruba will go forward with Edo and Zamfara and Kano.
Till it becomes
interesting. Can we talk about the fact that we are living in a very small village, the global village, that has a lot of interest? So there's a part of the foreign interest. We have the Chinese, the Russia, and America. The Vice President Kamala Harris came to Ghana and was pledging 100 million for West Africa. And it's just because it was very clear. Russia is here, China is here, America too needs to show we are here. So is it really our decision? Because we have already signed some treaties and some bilateral relations agreements with some of these foreign powerful countries who we cannot just stroll away from and say we want to organize ourselves in-house. How will we deal with those foreign influences as well?
Well, you've said the question, you've answered it. We will deal with it. You know, because I agreed yesterday to be your best friend, doesn't mean that in 2 days' time, when my son now says, your son beat him up, we cannot now look at that agreement again. We just have to be realistic, you know, and we must really cut ourselves off as best as we can from this colonial and Western influence apron strings. The irony is that Africa is stronger than all these nations.
Yes.
In terms of intellectual competence, in terms of resource,
definitely resource,
in terms of knowledge and understanding. I heard your conversation about the IT backbone of a lot of banks and all that. Yeah. If you go to Houston today and you took out Nigerians from the medical corps, it will collapse. If you go to London, take out Nigerians from their medical corps, it will collapse. Go to Germany, you do the same, it might virtually collapse. go to
In Australia too.
Australia, go to Dubai, even Dubai, go to... There was a time when the hospitals in Saudi Arabia were manned 20-30% by doctors from UCH and Luth. My uncles were part of that emigration at that time. Nigerians are everywhere. Go to NASA, you will find a Nigerian there. Go to the White House,
Several.
you will find them there. You understand? We have such intellectual competence that we don't even appreciate ourselves. Not only that, Africa has 40% of the world's resources. 40%. Maybe more.
Largely untapped.
Largely untapped.
Or exploited.
Largely. They put diamond in the Queen of England's crown. They don't have a single diamond in England.
Can you imagine?
That diamond must have come from South Africa. The gold on her crown came from Ghana. The velvet probably came from India. The tea, called British tea, they don't grow one grain of tea.
Wow.
The chocolates that you buy from Switzerland came from Ghana or Ivory Coast or Nigeria. We have all this resource. They don't allow us to add value. They had the gun, and they came and took away even our mentally.
So who's the biggest threat? Us from the inside, or the outside influence?
I think
to our unity?
the outside influence have kept us disunited. They killed Lumumba in Congo. They dealt with Nkrumah in Ghana. They never allowed Awolowo to see the light of day in Nigeria.
It was them, right?
Because they knew he had serious intellectual capability. Although he was likely a Yoruba-based person, but he was the smartest. And anybody can contest it. What he did is evident. Western Nigeria was leading France in terms of development in the 60s, in the 50s and 60s. We had a television station before they had one in Paris. It was not just first in Africa. It was I mean, the man was a little bit ahead of his time. But the Western powers never allowed him to get to the center, and then trumped up reasonable charges against him.